morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. This is actually going to be the last Skeptics in the Hub before the festive season, because I'm going to focus on other activities that I've got brewing here. We're going to do an enormous 4-hour-long telethon on New Year's Eve. We're calling it Live Stream Aid, because it's a takeoff of Live Aid, but streamed. So that's going to happen. And then also in the new year, we're going to start weekly Global Atheist News casts. So that should be interesting too. But all of these things are for the future. Tonight, we have with us Addison Billing, who is researching into the behavior, the social behavior of infants and adults at University College London. Hello, Addison.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's the end of term, about to be Christmas, so it's a big last minute push, as always.
That's right, yes. The end of term is always full of
Madness.
all sorts of things, tidying up the education side, but also social things going on as well. Although I imagine they're a bit curtailed in this COVID world.
Unfortunately, yes. A lot of online Zoom parties just aren't the same.
Well, they aren't, are they? No. They don't capture the mood at all.
Definitely.
However, you've got a very interesting field of research underway, haven't you?
I think so.
Can you tell us a bit about it? I mean, what people talk about tabula rasa, don't they?
They do. Yeah, so I look at more of social behavior in terms of adults and then infants. So what is learned and what is innate, and how do we understand really the world around us and how we're processing those social behaviors?
So are you a subscriber to the concept that we are born empty and that you can pack stuff in subsequently, or is that a nonsense?
I would definitely say that's nonsense. We know that things are definitely malleable. You understand the languages that you're exposed to, of course, but we do have like one example is laughter, really, in that all around the world it'll sound the same. We understand it the same way, regardless of language.
I'd like to get on to laughter in a minute, but first of all, I want to tell you about years ago when I finished my teaching career, because I'm quite old. But I was at that time the governor of a primary school, and we were putting on training events for the staff, and we had this one educationalist come along who said, and it boggled my mind, he said, we're all born empty and it's the job of teachers to fill us up and there's no limit to the potential of any child. And I thought, what does he know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's variation in every characteristic. He obviously doesn't know any genetics at all. And after he delivered his presentation, we had Q&A, which was written. So I wrote him a question. I said, oh, it's so many years ago, I won't be able to quote it perfectly, but the idea was, you know, there's variation in height, color, abilities of sporting nature, you name it, everything has a range of variation. What is it about intelligence that makes it an exception? And you know what? He answered everybody else's question except mine.
Just ignore it.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely not true. People understand things completely differently, and how quickly you catch on to things, the type of things that you enjoy and therefore work harder at and practice. They're all very different. Yes,
indeed. Yes. Obviously you're thinking the same way as me.
Yes, I think that's right.
As far as that's concerned. Right, well, I'm going to finish rabbiting and let you get on with telling us some of your interesting stuff.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're looking at social behavior and laughter. So we're 30 times more likely to laugh with other people than if we're alone. And this will be filled with clips, by the way. This is the first one. So in this clip, this is obviously in a precarious position. He's about to fall into the water. and his friends are watching him. They actually want him to fall in the water so that they can all laugh together.
That's one of the do it again for the camera moments.
Yeah. So as soon as he signifies that he's fine, it's all right, everyone just joins in and laughs together. And we laugh for different reasons. You laugh to show that you're playing, to show that you could say a rude joke, but then you laugh and you're like, I'm not actually being really aggressive. Little kids, as they're running towards each other, will just be like laughing and tackling each other. So we're showing that we're not attacking you, basically. This is playing. And then we still do this as adults, but we do laughter in all different types of ways. So this is, you could be saying, oh, I agree with you, I understand what you're saying, or like, we're friends and they're not friends. So we use it. It's really, really complicated in how we actually use laughter. We use laughter to mock people as well. So in this clip, if you listen closely, you'll hear the laughter, and it's really important because laughter is such a, it could be really divisive. People don't react well to it.
2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
So it's who you laugh at can also be really dangerous. If you laugh at the wrong person, it's seen as very aggressive. But it's also used to downregulate negative emotions. It's really complicated. So Robert Levinson out in the US did this study where he brought in a bunch of married couples, and he wanted to see how they reacted together under stress. So he sat them down and he measured all their stress responses, everything is good. And then he said, can you name things that your partner does that annoys you? And instantly everyone got very, very concerned and stressed. And the couples who handled that by laughing together and joking and smiling, who really just, their responses went way down, and they rated their marital satisfaction as a lot higher than those who just went for it, everything that bothered them. So it's important in so many different ways. We have two main types of laughter. You have a spontaneous laughter. So this is something where you find it could be hysterically funny to you, or it's something you can't stop. So when you're laughing, you're like, I really shouldn't be laughing, but you're still laughing. And it's not something you can control. And it's a lot higher in pitch than we could actually ever make our voices. So you can't possibly fake this, and it's longer in duration. It sounds like this. This is an incident where he fell into a bunch of paint in his friend's van. And this sounds really different from this volitional laughter, which is really nasally and so, oh, we're laughing together, but it's not, like, nothing's actually funny.
You're dying laughing. You couldn't get it out of it. I love that story so much.
Yeah. They sound very different. And people understand that. People can see they're different sounds and identify if it's spontaneous or volitional. And we saw when my supervisor, Professor Sophie Scott, and Carolyn McGettigan, who's the lead author on this, put people into an fMRI, and they played these different sounds, and they asked them to rate if it was a posed sound or if it was a real sound of laughter. The posed sounds, they found activated areas in the prefrontal cortex. So you're trying to figure out, what do they mean by this? You hear it's volitional, you're saying, are they laughing? Like, are they agreeing with me? What are they trying to show? We're really trying to mentalize and say what's happening. And testing laughter is really hard, especially the production of laughter, because it's an uncomfortable environment. People are just, you're being watched. They don't know us and we don't know them. And it's just a lot more awkward, especially within an fMRI machine. If you've ever experienced one, you're lying very close to you. It's extremely claustrophobic. You have this really loud magnet. So this is harder for them to hear things. You have to account for all this noise, but it also doesn't allow for any movement. In laughter and normal conversations, interactions, you have a lot of movement. So that really cuts down on what you can do, and if you can look at the production of laughter. So explaining this cortically, just to give a bit of a background, when your brain's responding to an event or a stimulus, all the neurons are firing, they're using up oxygen. So then you have this increase of oxygenated blood that comes so that the neurons can continue firing. And then that produces this big response that we can measure of an increase in oxygenated hemoglobin and a decrease in deoxygenated hemoglobin. And this is what fMRI relies upon. That's the deoxygenated hemoglobin. But what I use, functional near infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRS, actually is able to look at both of them. So this is a very simplified graph. And how this works is that you have a source and detector. This is just one channel example. So it's placed on top of the head, and the source is emitting photons. And some of these photons get collected back in the detector. And the HBO and HBr are actually chromophores, so they absorb light. And they absorb light at 2 different wavelengths. So we can use 2 different wavelengths of photons then to estimate what this changes within blood flow. So then be able to infer neural activation depending on what we come back with. There's a lot of maths involved. It's a really simplified version, but that's how FNIRS works.
So light goes through the skull?
Yes, it does. So the same way, if you have a flashlight and you put your finger on top, you can see all of the blood. Yes, it goes through the skull. So you don't collect all of the photons coming up because you do have a diffusion of photons. Like if you have a random walk, it's not as if everything comes back there. But we know we can calculate how many we expect to come back.
Yes.
Based off, we have a model for the scattering properties that's been really well established, the scattering properties within the CSF and the different gray matter and white matter in the skull. And in hair as well, hair will absorb light.
It might depend on the thickness of the skull?
It does actually. Your skull has different thicknesses in different parts of it, and you have to account for that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to clear that.
Oh, that's a really good question. No, thank you. Yeah. So we look at these social behavior areas that have been really well established, all different tasks from a bunch of different researchers. So we knew where we wanted to focus, where we want to place our probe. So we have many different sources and detectors here. And this is the sensitivity on the cortex of where we could look at. So our probe wasn't big enough to cover the entire cortex, but we would have wanted to get the prefrontal cortex. We just weren't able to access it. So we played them clips that sound like that. And that. And they listened to these, and then after they did a behavioral rating task where we asked them on a scale of 1 to 7, how contagious did you find the sound and how authentic did you think that the sound was? And we saw that they were highly related. So if a sound was really contagious, then it would be really authentic, and it was a strong linear relationship. This is the same data just shown another way, and it shows that when you break them apart for volitional and spontaneous, that there's a huge difference in that for contagiousness of spontaneous, there's really strong ceiling effect. It's all the way up there. We should have, after this, we realized, well, maybe we need a different length scale. But this was our results, and we found that people can tell the difference rating-wise what they're listening to, which has been shown before in terms of the authenticity that people know that they're different. So this is the results for this adult FNIRS study. So you see this more widespread within the premotor areas in spontaneous laughter as opposed to volitional. Volitional laughter does have some, you'd expect to have some response, but you see a lot stronger of response for spontaneous laughter. You also have this left, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see. Temporal, yeah?
I just wanted to clear up volitional laughter. You mean acting, don't you?
Yes, yeah, it's, well, volitionally doing something, suppose. Yeah. It's something that you're trying to do. Yeah, so it's that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. I'm thinking of clarifying things. Thank you.
Sorry, I went too quickly there. So I have this TPJ activation, which is known for being part of mentalizing, so we understand what that other person means. And these results were then combined with our behavioral results for the most interesting part of this, I think, which is really looking at how do the differences in the cortex for the different spontaneous and volitional sounds, so the differences in amount there, how does that relate to then the differences in behavior for the two sounds? Like, our actual understanding of the sounds, like, you know, how we can rate them and what's going on in the cortex. And we saw this beautiful isolation of the supplementary motor area. So this is showing that we have this priming effect. When we hear these sounds, that it's actually priming us to respond. And then we understand that behaviorally by saying, yes, I think this is a more authentic sound because you have this priming. And this is more contagious sound because of that priming. So this is a paper that we've submitted last month, so it's under review. We're really, really excited about it. And then this is just one of the peak activations. So this shows within the SMA, we have this strong linear relationship for contagion and authenticity, but in an area that we wouldn't expect to. So the right inferior temporal lobe is where we don't have that relationship. Then we're able to move on, so finishing that project, moving on to diffuse optical tomography, which is like FNIRS, but really crazy, really exciting. Just a big jump forward in terms of technology. So this is the LUMA system developed by Gower Labs. There are many advantages to using this instead of that really massive fiber-based system that I showed earlier. And it's portable, so we bring this system up to, we're doing this in Cambridge. So this is just on the train. We bring it up with us in this little backpack, and it's fantastic that way. It's silent, so that means that you can play this auditory stimuli, and actually that is all that they're listening to instead of having the fMRI sounds. Comfortable, we have these babies fall asleep while they wear it, so they're not bothered by it at all. It's cost effective, it's a lot cheaper than fMRI. fMRIs were at £650 an hour, it adds up. And it's naturalistic because you're not tethered to anything. It's just one little wire, like an earphone wire. You can do all these different tests. People have been shown for driving cars and dancing, and now we're using it for social behavior. So our first step was to replicate a study because no one's ever used this device on infants before. So we replicated this well-established paradigm from Sarah Lloyd Fox on looking at social behavior. This is her original study. So you have 26 channels, the channel where you could look at the differences between the source and detector. They have 26 measurements, effectively. And then in our application, we had 432 per hemisphere. So it's just a lot more data, which will be a lot more accurate then. And instead of using this big silver box here, which was the old system, we're now using that like little black box on top of the trolley that you see. So this went really well. We were really excited about it, and this has been released, and we had a lot of exciting press around it. And then we did have a lot of issues testing infants. This is something that everyone will understand if you've dealt with a baby. They randomly move at all different timings. They will fall asleep in the middle of things. They get hungry and fuss out, and you would really like them to just sit there and watch something nicely, and it's not going to happen. So you have to redesign things so that it captures their attention and be a lot more flexible than you would need to if you're working with adults. And we're looking at this in infants because we want to see how our perception of laughter changes. These are the results from the Royal Society summer exhibit that Sophie Scott did, where they had 1,800 participants. And so they're looking at age here, and they found that for young children, when they asked them, is this laughter sound real or posed on a scale, they had no idea like what they were even asked. It's just laughter. So we develop this ability as we get older. We start to understand, be better at empathizing and seeing, what is this person thinking? What are they trying to tell me? But as small children, they have no idea. But we wanted to see if the cortex really, if they actually did know, they just didn't understand the question, right? So we're looking at, this is recent tests that we're doing. This is within the last few weeks that we've been running these. So it's after lockdown was released, we can finally start. It's been really exciting. So we're looking at 6 to 8 months and how they're processing laughter sounds and doing similar studies to the FNIRS one that I talked about earlier, this time where they're in the DOT cap. The interesting part that we're switching to is that's the first paradigm is processing, and then we're switching on to production. Infant laughter, actually, when they produce it, is incredibly contagious. I don't think anyone's done studies on how many people laugh in a room when one baby laughs. I would be interested in doing that study or reading about it. But parents love, it's really exciting for a community when a baby starts laughing, especially in the Navajo community. They celebrate it. They actually have a party, a baby laughing party, because it means that the baby has come out of really, they say, like, is the more spiritual realm and come into their family and the people realm and wanting to connect and wanting to have this social moment, because laughter is entirely social. So being able to celebrate that is a really important tradition to them. And the production of laughter is wonderful to see and to study, and is really important in how they learn to do this communication, which we know is so important then as an adult. So it develops around 2 to 3 months is when they'll start laughing, and they do it. It's a lot simpler than adults, and they're not trying to manipulate you. They're just feeling happy or excited, or they want attention and they're trying to keep your attention. They figured something new out of like how a light switch works, and they're laughing about it because they're happy. So this is the first naturalistic free play paradigm that you have with infants using Effners. So this is one of the pictures from one of our babies from last week. And here's another clip of which we found is the most effective way of producing laughter in a baby.
Peekaboo! 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 Peekaboo!
This is a very happy baby. We really enjoy watching. So we step out of the room now because you have to have all our masks on during testing. But for the production part, we're filming it to know all the timings, and we step out and watch from the window and how good they're laughing. So it's been really nice to start watching.
You can't watch that without breaking into a smile, can you?
Yeah, we're just outside the door, like giggling. Yeah. It's nice. So we're looking at what's actually happening on the cortex that's causing them to laugh, and what are they reacting to? What does their parent do that's making them laugh, and why is that funny? Then are they actually always laughing spontaneously? Do they ever laugh to try and get something or get that getting attention? Is that volitional or is that spontaneous? And then a big struggle for me is going to be, how do we analyze this data? Because normally you have this paradigm where it's very clear. You play a sound or you play a video, you're seeing reaction, you could see, all right, this is the reaction to that, clean. But this, it's like, how do you time what's going on? How do you code what's happening? And so this is why we have this video data, to see exactly what the timing is. But it's like, well, do you go a little bit before, so you're seeing their reactions, and are they producing, like, are they also hearing their own laughter? So you're getting response there, and how do you separate that? So that's going to be a big challenge for us. I'm also working with, our testing is at the Cambridge Baby Lab, and I'm working with Becky Lawson and Ellie Smith. So we're doing prediction and learning. So we're looking at how babies will adapt and stop being surprised by things, and really figure out, like, develop what they expect to happen, and then what happens when that expectation is then crossed. How do they react? So how we start to build what, like, kind of our view on how things should be. We're just starting that out as well. We're running them concurrently so we can test together. This is everyone who has supported the work and really helped out. And lastly, if anyone knows new babies in the Cambridge or London area who'd want to come in, we are still recruiting, and we're stopping tomorrow, but taking a break for Christmas, and then starting again for January and February. So please contact me through Twitter right there, or email, or really any way is fine. We'd like to have you in. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was fantastic.
Awesome.
I didn't know about digital optical tomography. That's what a development that is, eh?
It is, yeah. So it's diffuse optical tomography because the light is diffusing. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's something that it's incredible technology. And at this point, this is the first studies to really start using it. That's not wired. There's another group who are doing really great work with, like, Joel Culver and Adam Megerberg, but they have a lot of wires. So that is not conducive for infant testing.
Not ideal for babies, no. Yeah.
We don't like that.
So you're at the cutting edge of a new technology then, aren't you? Right place, right time.
I am. I'm really lucky. I go to conferences and everyone's actually interested in what I have to say.
Yes, it's like that. Because
Yeah.
the last I heard, it was a functional MRI or NMRI or something like that. And
That it is still like fMRI is a wonderful tool. It's really different. You're testing for different things. It just they're going to be used differently, and this isn't at the point where you could go and use it in a hospital and expect to see things. But that is what we'd like to do, because it would be a lot cheaper. For a lot of places can't afford to have an fMRI. A lot of universities have it. A lot of hospitals can't have it around the world. It's just too expensive. So if we can bring it in, that would be really good. We're actually doing work in the NICU now at the Rosie Hospital. My colleagues are working on that, looking at strokes.
It's the pace of development, isn't it? Because I remember when CAT scan was the latest thing, and how many
definitely don't do that to babies. No.
It's dinosaur stuff, isn't it, nowadays?
Oh no, it's still very useful and very good technology. It's just, what are you using it for? You don't want to inject things into a baby who's healthy if you don't need to. You don't in an fMRI, because they move so much, you'd need to sedate them, or they'd need to be asleep. Which is why we know very little about healthy brain development in babies, because you just haven't been able to really test it before without big risks.
No, you can't put them in that horrible tunnel, can you? No,
parents really aren't keen.
I had a MRI scan some time ago, and they injected me with, I can't remember the name of it. It was a transition metal element.
Yes. So it's you've had the uncomfortable experience then of being within MRI. Imagine someone's trying to make you laugh in that.
Yes, it's not conducive. No, not at all. So, the way things are moving, things are only going to get smaller and more densely packed, aren't they? So, is diffuse optical tomography going to end up with even more sensors in that cap? So
that's what we're working on now. Now it's a matter of software development, actually, because we can add more tiles. It'll just be how we can handle the software behind that. But we expect that to be pretty soon, actually. So we'll have more of a coverage. We're also working on hyperscanning. So then you can actually have into one machine, have two people have them. So actually look at these interactions and what's happening on the cortex and both. Some groups they say that they're doing hyperscanning, but they have two different machines. And so, like, how do you know that the timings are actually right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Two different measurements. It's more complicated.
Yes, they're not on the same clock, are they? They could be out of step.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
Yeah. Wow. I just find it boggling that the way things are going. Soon we'll be able to read people's minds. Although, did you hear that there's some claims of a lab in Japan which reckons that they can reconstruct from the brain waves of the optical center the picture that they're showing the subject putting it in front of their eyes? I can't remember the name.
I haven't looked at that study. I imagine that you could get some idea of what they're looking at, on how maybe if it was brighter or less bright, or if it was more exciting or more scary, something like that. But I haven't read that study.
It's better than that, apparently, because although you can't, it's not identical with the original picture.
Yeah.
Because the resolution isn't as good, but it's recognizable.
That is
really amazing. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you said they're using EEG?
I don't know what.
Okay. It sounds like an odd thing. I would be interested to see how they did it and what tools they were using.
I'll Google a link and put it in a chat.
That would be good. I'd be happy to look at it.
It'd be a pleasure. So I've got some questions coming in here about laughter. Compost John says, but is laughter itself innate? not learned as a way of communicating. Because all human cultures use laughter in the same way, and facial expressions are a universal human trait.
So spontaneous laughter, the understanding of that is going to be innate, but we don't, that was what I was showing with the Royal Society summer exhibit, is that when you're young, you don't know if it's volitional or spontaneous. Our volitional laughter is definitely not something innate. Like that's something that we learn how to do well.
Yes.
But so babies aren't doing that, we don't think.
There's two sorts of laughter. There's sort of laughing to a tickle, which you're born with. And then there's
that's actually different. Tickling's a different, a different one. That's an interesting word. Yeah, that's a sensory related and not the same thing.
You can bring us up to date on that in a minute, but I just wanted to pursue this idea of being born with spontaneous laughter. So you react to "ooh," for example, like you showed in the video. But then at that stage, not being able to distinguish it from acted laughter until later. So when does that discernment appear? Is it in months or years?
I'm not sure how I could share my screen again. Give me, all right. I don't see how I could, it's fine. When those two curves, is we really become good at it at around 30. On understanding volitional laughter, it's very late. So we get better at it, but it only really levels off at around 30. So we're improving and we're becoming more empathetic people. We're becoming better at communicating, at understanding what other people mean, what other people want. So it's definitely a skill that we develop on how to understand people's laughter.
30, 3 decades, 3 decades. Of being fooled.
This was taken at the Royal Society summer exhibit, so that may play a part in it. I imagine maybe it's just British people who are attending this exhibit are a bit late, but that's what the data is saying.
I was going to come on to asking whether there was any geographical differences, but
and I was interested in that exhibit, but it was still a very, very large study that they did.
I've noticed, just as my own experience, so obviously this is an anecdote and therefore not of any value scientifically, but I've noticed that I've got less willing to laugh. When I was doing my first degree, there was a lot of laughter. We all gathered together, and back in those days, we used to listen to the radio, because, as I said, I'm very old, and we all used to laugh communally, because it was much more fun being together, like you said. You don't laugh much on your own, really, do you? Except the occasional roll at a meme or something. But when you're in a group, especially if it's a compact group, then it's contagious. So, but that really
is. So out of my lab, Ceci was the lead author on this, and Sophie's the last author, and they produced this paper that was extraordinary, that showed listening to dad jokes, so really bad jokes. If you added in laughter at the end of it, people found it funnier. They would rate it as funnier because other people thought it was funny, so they laughed. So and if it was spontaneous laughter that it was paired with, the effect was even stronger. So you know that laughing with other people will actually make you laugh more.
Yes.
That makes me heard it. Oh no. We're not going to have a reading, are we?
I'm equipped with books full of dad jokes. So it still amazes me that apparently we're gullible. We can be tricked by false laughter until we're 30. That is incredible.
Well, not tricked, but not understand what they mean, really.
Yes. Yeah. So here's Compost John again. He says, have you looked at the responses of different people, such as male and female, autistic and neurotypical, for instance?
So those are two very, very important questions. First, I am interested in looking at male and female differences because we know that in other studies they've shown that they react differently to hearing the sounds, can identify things. But we haven't looked at that because you need to have and you should have a massive amount of people to look at gender differences. if with a small number, if you have 20 participants or 24 is the median for fMRI, you're not looking at gender differences at that point. It's just too small of a study to really compare. In terms of autism, there are differences on how they are reacting. That's work that's currently going on in the lab, actually, that Ceci's leading up on. So she'll be publishing that really soon, actually. But that is something that they've done. There's also been a lot of work on depression, on hearing the laughter sounds differently, and psychopathy. There have been studies on that as well, of boys with psychopathy just don't find laughter as contagious. Like, they understand spontaneous or volitional, they just don't want to really join in. So that was a really interesting paper.
They're apart from it in their own little isolated situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow. Then there's animal laughter, isn't there? There's been quite a lot of clips on YouTube and on
I get sent those videos a lot.
You do, yeah. Twitter, I think, mostly, where you see little clips of animals laughing. There's foxes laughing. Their laughter's very cute, being tickled to laugh. A
lot of involving play, showing that they're playing.
Yes.
Please don't bite me. Like, we're playing.
Yeah. Well, they do bite, but gently, don't they? It's little nibbles of
yes, friendly nibbles. Yeah.
Yes, this is just to say that I'm being friendly, not being vicious. Yeah. And then there's rats' laughters, and that's ultrasonic, isn't it? So
yes, it is. So that work done by Penscape that's really incredible. And they actually want to be tickled. They want to laugh. And they found that when you remove the I think they severed the vocal cords of rats, so they can no longer make these laughing sounds. They found that when they're playing with other rats, they get bitten more often because they're not able to actually convey, "I'm not attacking you."
Yes. Yeah.
It's really, really important for their behavior to be able to make these laughing sounds. In the same way it is for us, to show that we're not. If you make a joke or if you laugh at something, someone just looks at you, is really uncomfortable.
And the same applies to the smile, doesn't it? Which we've all been deprived because of the masks now.
Yes, it's been really interesting working with little babies and how different it is with the mask on, and how they react really, really differently and have to get used to it. But these babies were born during quarantine, so that's just what they're going to be used to for a bit. A lot of parents are really concerned about that, actually, but it's something we've had for the rest of history of not having our masks on, so I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine.
And they're all being raised in this alien world of masked people now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you think it would help to paint a smile on the mask?
I think that'd be a bit creepy. I don't recommend it. Especially Joker style smile would be.
Yes.
No. Please no.
The Joker.
Yeah.
So what's this? This is Facebook user. Didn't put their name in. Laughter must be a tribal conformation signal too. We laugh when the tribe that it benefits us to get on with laughs.
That's very true. Yes.
Like you laugh with the boss. So if Trump laughs, you make sure you laugh. Or you could be.
It also has to do with respect. How much you respect the person. So I'm not sure how I would. Well, I don't think I'd really be in that situation anyway. But yes, how it's pecking order is your laughter is affected by all these different social communications. So there was a study done with boys in a fraternity, well, men, boys, definitely boys in a fraternity, and they found that the younger pledges, if they laughed like at the same level and in the same like super manly tough way as the older boys, that it was seen as like, oh, they're laughing too much, you gotta like put them down because they're not allowed to laugh in the same way that we are. So it's really laughing correctly, like laughing appropriately back is very important for social behavior, and something that people with autism then have a hard time understanding, this volitional laughter of, well, they're laughing. They assume, oh, they're laughing with me because they're laughing, but they're actually being laughed at. And it's really important to teach them like how to recognize the differences when they're young, so that they can understand if they're being bullied and how to react.
Yeah, imagine that, a pecking order of laughter. Yes. So we've got some more interesting questions here. Laughing gas. Now, I've had laughing gas, and whilst it made me make ha 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 sounds if I took too big a gulp of it, you know, I had Entonox, not pure laughing gas, but the mixture, and but it wasn't comedy. It just
our laughter isn't. There are things that can cause laughter that aren't not like this laughing gas, but it's not the same type of laughter. In the same way they did, there was brain surgery that was going on. They were stimulating different areas to make sure that they're cutting the correct places, and they found that if they're stimulating the SMA, actually, where we found this activity on if you find laughter contagious or authentic. So this is this one case study where they were stimulating the SMA, and this girl started laughing, like hysterically laughing. They asked her, "Why are you laughing?" And she was justifying it by saying, like, "Oh, well, you're just sitting there and it's funny," or saying, "Oh, I thought of a horse and it was funny." And so we laugh, and then we think, well, why did we laugh? And you can justify it, but that's not a social laughter. That's triggering something in the brain that's not. Laughing gas isn't a normal situation, and neither is stimulating the cortex. So
it's more of an effect on the diaphragm than on the brain, probably.
I wouldn't say that, but there aren't very. Sorry, I live right near the hospital. Sorry about that. So there aren't many studies where we actually stimulate the brain, because there are hopefully not that many people that need it. So there isn't much on there. That is the paper about direct stimulating the brain and laughter.
Wow. So what's your next research project? You did start talking about how the direction you're going.
Well, this infant laughter is going to be a pretty big one, which I'm sure will take me a bit of time as we're in the middle of data collection. And I'm also doing the learning study at the same time with Ellie and Becky Lawson. So working on that. And then my PhD will end at the end of this year. So I'll be looking for fellowships. And what I'm trying to do is apply for money to get a system of my own and look at executive functioning in infants, because I'm really interested in how ADHD develops and what we can look at earlier. I would like to do, Carla Hollenbo at Oxford is doing executive functioning work using FNR, so using a much older system in typically developing children, looking at behavioral trajectories, and she's developed this really nice paradigm. So we put in a fellowship application together on bringing in DOT and looking at as well higher risk groups for ADHD if you have ADHD in a sibling. I'm really hoping to get that, but fellowships are kind of a crapshoot. But so I'll be applying to others as well. But that's what I'd really like to move into, still using DOT with infants, but looking at ADHD, especially in girls.
Oh, right, because it's rare in girls compared to boys.
It's not, actually. It's less commonly diagnosed because it's different than boys. For ADHD and for autism, women have to score on all these tests are designed for males, and women have to score worse than males do on tests designed for males to actually get a diagnosis. And we're really underserving them, and it's causing just really horrible things for them. They're going to be diagnosed with anorexia and bulimia and anxiety before they're diagnosed with ADHD and ASD, because it's seen as a male disorder when it is the same disorder. It presents slightly differently in males and females. So instead of having a child who's running around causing a lot of chaos and being loud, this girl inside her head is going through all these things and trying to sort things out, and might be well behaved but just can never bring her homework in because she just gets really does it and then forgets it and is scattered, right? And we need to be able to help them just as much as we're helping the loud kid who's causing problems. And it's really a big issue, and lack of data and lack of studies for women, and it's something that I feel very strongly about, that we actually need to do more work for them.
And it's a sort of residual misogyny, it sounds like, in the diagnostic field.
That's pretty big. Have you read the book Invisible Women?
No. I haven't.
It's fantastic, and you really should, on how women, the data isn't there, and how they don't do in testing, like with crash test dummies and testing cars, that women aren't tested in the driver's seat because women drive incorrectly because they have to sit too far forward. Right? All of these things are just like, really? I'm sitting incorrectly because I need to reach the pedals. All right.
Yes,
so
because it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. So it's a very frustrating and very well written book, and I think everyone involved in any policy making or in any research, it's important, and just like being around, it's important to know where we're missing things.
Yes, well, we need more equality. That's what I say.
Yes, and that applies to the data that we collect as well. If you don't know about it, if you don't have enough information, you can't make well-informed decisions.
Well, I, as you may know, I'm a retired science teacher, and I taught in all sorts of schools, including male only, female only, and co-ed. And to my way of thinking, the most natural is the co-ed. You don't meet male only and female only societies in the wide world unless you enlist in the military or something. Even that's changing.
But for a lot of girls, being in girls-only schools are actually a lot better for their education because they're called upon. They're not shut down. They're not, someone's not talking over them, and they develop this confidence in themselves and in the material, and are able to interact with it more.
Well, that's interesting. Yes, I was reporting from a teaching point of view, not a pupil point of view. I went to co-ed schools myself and ended up teaching in them a lot. So, the author of this book is Caroline Perez.
Yes.
One of our member of our audience has provided that for us. Isn't Google wonderful? I don't know whether John Googled it, but he's provided it for us. Thank you, John. Okay, so I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And good luck with all your attempts to raise money to continue the research. It's vital. We need to sort out some sort of response to these conditions of autism and ADHD, because at the moment they're getting left behind. But I suspect, you know, that things like dyslexia didn't used to be a disadvantage because hardly anyone could write and read. And it's only because the modern world requires everyone to be able to read and write that dyslexia has become a problem. Previously, people who lacked that ability were probably leaders because of their access to memory and vocabulary and ability to express verbally, as the other world was closed to them, so they developed that one, you know, the live response one.
Well, if we don't need skills, you wouldn't know if you're bad at them if you don't test them.
So I'm just thinking dyslexia, for example, may not have been a disadvantage 150 years ago.
But it's a bit different. I mean, different from autism and from ADHD.
Oh yes. I wasn't meaning to bracket them together. No, I was just thinking that that's a particular one that's only become a disadvantage due to the way society has moved, and education requires the ability to read and write. Yes. Yeah. We've got to thank you. I'm going to put this on the screen. Look at that. That's a nice wish, isn't it? It's appearing the right way around for you, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Sometimes this software inverts things, and we have to try and read it backwards. It depends on the viewing screen, I think. Okay. Any more questions, anybody? They're laughing at my beer drinking. I can recommend this, guys. It's a green bottle, so it's not really. This is because of my chroma key technology. This is real. This is a green screen. Don't believe that. So this is. I'm going to do an advert here. Stella, you know, brain damaging Stella. They've done a brilliant alcohol-free one. You can't tell the difference, and you don't get your brain damaged. I hope Stella noticed this and send me a free crate.
Nice.
Okay, well, I'm going to just do a quick commercial for the rest of the year of Skeptics in the Hub, because as I announced at the beginning, in case some people have joined since I made that announcement, this is the last one before Christmas. But in January and from then on through 2021, which hopefully will be a much better year than 2020 has been, couldn't be worse, could it? We have a group.
Don't say that.
Tempting, yes. But we intend to have a great program of experts and academics coming to address us in future. So thank you very much, Addison. Take the rest of the day.
All right, have a nice day.
You've been fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.